Okay, so I'm Captain Anthony Grassi, and this is Captain Frank Wagenhoffer. Hello, everybody here. And today we're going to talk about tournament winning strategies using Mojos and how we are so successful using the Mojo system. All right, so we first started using Mojos around 15 years ago, and we were fishing a tournament series called the ASA and the FLW. We fished with the local captain down there, and he was showing us how you could fish with multiple rigs for striped bass and be effective. And it wasn't until maybe about 5 years ago the Mojo craze started to move its way up the East Coast, and probably as far north as Massachusetts are using the Mojo lures.
And what he wound up teaching us was down in Chesapeake, they use a lot of single Mojos planer boards. Our technique was that we wound up using smaller center console style boats, quick to bounce around. He introduced us to basically, this is a shortened version, the tandem rig, so we could fish more than one head or one rod without just using a single or planer boards. So that was what we wound up picking up from him and took away from that. And it really made a big difference in our success.
So in the last year, in the 2018 season, our team won 7 out of 9 major New Jersey striped bass tournaments. And the other 2 that we didn't win, we took a 3rd and 4th place, and overall winning the LBI Grand Championship 2 years in a row. And this is completely using Mojos. We're using only Mojos, a combination of Mojos and lures in our presentation.
No bait, no live lining.
No bait, no live lining,
no
poppers, and it's a very effective way to catch large striped bass. All right, so Frank, you want to talk about why we use the Mojos?
Well, we use them because unlike using downriggers or spoons with wire and specialized equipment, more or less you can hit your depth consistently because you actually feel that tap of the Mojo, whether it's a single or whether you're utilizing a tandem rig. You don't have all this other gear in the water to bring up when you land a fish or get a fish on. You don't have planer boards down, and you're able to repeat it quickly. That's the biggest thing I can talk about for this tournament strategy, not just fishing Mojos. When you go over a piece and you wind up hitting your fish, and you pick that fish up going with, as soon as that fish is boated, whether you have 3, 4, 5 rods, everything is back in the boat gets swung back around, and everything gets deployed again. Because the biggest thing outside of fishing on top of tournament-sized fish is actually catching them quickly. Because that bite may only be there for 45 minutes, and that makes or breaks you. One of the tournaments we were in, over 100 boats, 11 fish were weighed in. We caught 4 of them. And that's just because of that strategy. You hit your fish, you reel it up, you swing the boat back around, and you deploy again. And that's the whole advantage of winding up when you use the braid systems and these style rods, with these types of lures, is you're not sitting there reeling in wire. It doesn't take a long time, and it efficiently comes up quickly, and you're able to reset. Same thing, you're not going to sit there and do a lazy circle and waste precious time, or you're not sitting there trying to reel in, wire with, slow or low retrieval rate reels.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more when I get to the part of where we're using our charts and when we hook a fish and the captain's responsibility as well as the mate's responsibility when we're fishing tournaments. So this is a total different way as if we fish our charters or for fun fishing. Tournament fishing is definitely different than we operate our charters.
Yeah, it's just the time you're out there from lines in to lines out, you need your lines in the water, you need to be moving. You need to put that fish in the boat quickly. You want to use specialized gear. You're not giving the fish any advantage, any mechanical advantage. You're immediately putting them in the boat, and you're doing it again and again and again throughout the entire course of that day. That's a make or break thing. Most people go out there and casually fish for fun, and it's totally different than a charter or enjoying the day on the water. It's all about speed and repetition.
So most of you should have a little bit of background of what Mojo fishing is because, it's now 3 years getting popular and more popular in the state of New Jersey. When we were doing these seminars 2 years ago, it was something new that was in this area, unless you fished in, Virginia and Maryland. So Frank's gonna just go over quickly what a Mojo is and give you an idea of, its history and, you know, the background to it.
More or less, a Mojo derived from basically an old parachute jig. The thing with parachute jigs is you had to use them with wire for the most part because they didn't have larger heads, so you couldn't get to a water depth utilizing, you know, a braid system. So basically, snapping wire is one of the techniques that were done, and it's a bit of a pain in the neck. You know, it's hard on the rotator cuff. Again, it's usually slow retrieve reels because you don't want to put your wire on a, you know, expensive high retrieve reel. And more or less it is just the bucktail, you know, with the hair tied in reverse. And basically what happens is when it's in the water, it lays back over the bait and it gives it a larger profile. Now the key thing with snapping wire versus what most people do when they troll, when you snap wire, you're actually snapping the rod like this. And it allows that Mojo head or that parachute type head to breathe. It actually expands and contracts. That's what the nylon's supposed to do. And one of the mistakes, tournament-wise versus fun fishing-wise, is people just set out their Mojos and they start trolling. So basically, the hair is pushed back or slicked back, something like this, and all it's moving is this little paddle tail. It's not giving this life or profile. That's why, for the most part, when you wind up using a tandem, swinging a spoon on it, the spoon is not just sitting there tracking straight. It's actually whipping around like this, giving it life and movement. And that's why you'll end up catching most of your fish on a spoon with your larger fish.
Yeah.
So one of the techniques is, instead of just sitting there snapping, because we're using this, you actually take one of them out of the rod holder and you physically work it. You make it different. That's why a lot of people go, oh, we caught a fish and I slowed the boat down. And then we picked up another fish, because next thing you know, the Mojo's changing. It's now slowing in speed and dropping, or they made a turn, or something happened where it made the rest of the presentation look different, and you get multiple pickups. So you can actually get your first pickup by just keeping one of those rods actively moving. So that's another technique.
Right. So, and also one of the features that we like in our Mojos is an articulated hook. You know, not all Mojos are created equal. There's a lot of companies out there that are selling them. You know, you get what you pay for. And the coatings on the head is very important, that it's a hard shell coating. Also, the brand hook, and as well as how tight and how well it's tied is the material for your, you know, for the Mojo, as well as usually a 9-inch shed complements it, as, and sometimes even larger sheds.
See, like this sear style head, this fire style head, this has a fixed hook. This fixed hook versus, let me see this one here. This articulated hook where the head flops. This takes away the mechanical advantage from the fish, or it helps it. This is not a good situation, because what that fish can actually do is actually have leverage. As you're pulling this way, he's pulling this way, you know, to wear a bigger hole because the head's not flopping. And the only reason this head style exists in this Mojo platform is because this is an old parachute style head with a single fixed hook that was never meant to have a shaft. That's where this style came from.
Right, and also, you know, a lot of people will lose fish at the side of the boat because at the last minute, a fish is going to turn, and then you're using the weight to counteract and to sometimes pull out the hook. And that's why having the articulated hook helps in improving your hookups as well as landing the fish.
You know, dropping.
Right. So, you know, we prefer to use a single articulated hook on our Mojos, and one of the reasons is because where the releasing of the fish, it's the mortality of the fish is much better, and they're easier to release. We've found that most of the time with Mojos that this is a strike that is done, a reaction strike versus a fish following a lure for a while, or scent. These fish are getting annoyed by this large profile bait coming past them, and they're striking it. And I can kind of compare it to freshwater guys that fish, you know, the beds when the fish are pregnant and they're managing their beds, and you keep tossing something in front of them, and finally the bass picks it up to move it out. And a lot of times these just annoy them and come by them.
Just like salmon fishing.
Yeah, salmon fishing. They just strike it because it's reactionary. So now another way we would rig a Mojo up is to have a stinger. And this is usually, we only use this when it's tournament time, or if, the fish are finicky, they're short striking, we would add a stinger, and it's really easy to do. Frank will show you.
I'm not, again, most of the charters, I'm not an advocate of it, so when we're fishing for fun or for sport, it's not the case. However, with the tournament side of it, we will wind up adding a stinger just in case we get a short striker, that the fish just wasn't on target. You don't want to lose the fish for a tournament setting. And what winds up happening is that it's a larger articulating hook like we use, where the main hook is actually center profile of the entire bait, which is the way it's supposed to be. You can actually use the wrong style head with a fixed hook, because then it allows itself to have that tandem. Most companies who use this also rig it for you this way, which when you're sport fishing or fun fishing is a pain, because every time you wind up losing the tail, it's a little bit hard on the angler to constantly re-rig with the tandem versus this. However, if you do have this style, what you'd wind up doing is when you rig your shad, you won't necessarily rig the shad all the way forward to the eye. What you would do is you would short rig your first hook, just past, an inch past the head. Then you would take an open-eyed short shank hook, and you can either open the eye or just enough where you can get it to click around this bar. And then you're going to wind up setting yourself up like this for a tandem situation. The way that it's rigged right now, it sits too far back. It's not what you want. That's why you short rig the forward shad, so you have more body on the shad for the secondary hook. Know what the camera is.
Yeah, so that would be what it looks like for you guys.
Then you would run this type of rig either as a single, and we'll get into this too with the whole Mojo thing. Mojo fishing isn't about two rigs all the time or tandems. I run a lot of singles, so then singles really produce, because the single, some are on the bottom, or if we're marking higher, I bring some higher up in the water column. When we use the tandems, which are usually pulling out of the outrodders, what will happen then is the lower Mojo head, which is the one that gets it down to depth, I don't do this on. Think of that lower or larger round Mojo, as I prefer, as your downrigger ball, and you have a hook on it. That's the bonus. However, with that single hook versus this, you don't get as many snags. It doesn't pick up as much junk. The whole purpose of the trailer, by setting it up with a tournament rig like this, is it's supposed to be at 8 to 10 feet behind, but it's also 2 feet above the bottom, and it's less prone to snagging, so you can get away with that rigging profile. Unless, of course, you're just fishing over sand, and it's almost all around, because you won't snag.
Okay, and these are the hooks that are generally used in most of the Mojos for stingers. One of the important things, open-eyed, short shank. Another important thing is sharpening hooks. I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that we neglect the most while fishing is sharpening hooks and keep them sharp, especially with the Mojos. A lot of times we're fishing, if we know this area is very sandy, we're going to fish a lot of times one of our Mojos right in the sand, because when a bass sees like puffs of sand coming along the bottom, and this sound, can sound like a large lobster moving along, again, or a big fluke, those fish are going to attack that bait. And
for no other reason than they know that it's swimming away and it's in their environment all the time. They just dive on it. They're not looking at it. They don't know what color it is. They don't know it's a shad. They just see it smoking through the bottom.
So with that, a lot of times your hook is hitting, clams and mussels and debris that's in the water. And it's important that you always check your hooks and make sure they're sharp. Because again, when we fished a tournament with 90 boats and only 11 fish caught, it's important that every fish that you get that strike, you land that fish.
And so the other thing is, out of the package, every manufacturer buys these when they make them. They come in like 500 hook flats. So they're literally laying all on top of each other, getting shipped from wherever, and they're constantly just rubbing. So it does. So it's always wise to just touch them up. It only takes a second.
So over the years in the development of different types of Mojo rigs, there have been traditionally different types of heads. And everybody, claims their heads are, the best. But there's different designs that we like to use for different types of fishing. And again, there's some old school smiling bills. Then you got the grinning gusses. You got the ball head jigs. This fire head. heads, and on the Mojos, what do you call that head? The banana head. So there's the banana head. So a lot of different heads, and it also changes a lot of different of the action of the Mojo.
And the biggest thing you really need to look for, I don't know if I can point it.
Yeah.
Most of the head that you really need to look at is like this. This is right, okay? The rounds, okay, the line ties are usually here at 45 degrees. You want at least 45 degrees. The problem is when you have anything that's got a line tie here or here, this is a casting profile. This has got nothing to do with trolling. If you want, you can experiment and maybe troll that as a single, but it won't work well in your tandem formation. Not to mention the fact that this style and the Spire style, which I'm gonna have to hold up, this style does not lend itself well at all as a dropper, because all they do is dig. They're debris collectors and they will snag you every time. When you have, which I prefer, a round or this banana style head, which has a very wide, broad base as a dropper, if it comes in contact with rocks or other debris, it tends to deflect and bounce off, not wedge or the way the line tie is on this versus this. This is, if you have any weed and whatnot, this is just gonna, it's a garbage collector. It's just literally gonna collect anything that comes by. Because you come down and rise. This one here, even when it rides down the line, it has the option of slipping under and coming off. This one's gonna ride down the line and get caught between the nose and this line tie every time. And it just speeds up more. These are small, subtle things, but these are some of the things that we're attuned to.
Okay, and as Ford said, back in the 30s, you could have any color car as long as it's, anybody know? You could have any color car as long as it's what color? What color? Black. You guys didn't know? Black? Okay, so we only made black cars back then. So with the sheds that we use for replacements, there are probably 50 different color combinations, and we've found these are the three go-to colors. So white, or pearl white, pink, and chartreuse. Those are the three colors. We've been messing around more with the bubblegum pink colors towards the end of last year, but usually we'll just have whites and chartreuse, and it's very simple to use. The only thing is with these type of baits, you can't keep them together because you'll customize the colors, they bleed, and so you want to keep them separated. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we store our Mojos on our boat so that we keep these things separated. But 9-inch shad is the state.
Pretty much the way everyone makes their Mojos, whoever, and even if you make them at home and you buy the heads, 9-inch is pretty much the standard that they're all kind of built around. If you start going to like an 8-inch or a 7-inch, then the hook doesn't lay quite right. Or if you go to the 12-inch, which is usually significantly more money, now you definitely need a tandem hook, even if you wind up using a big 12-0 because the shad is so much longer. So
Right.
9-inch is pretty much the standard.
And if you look at it, it's pretty similar to the profile of a large Manhattan or bunker. So that's usually why this whole combination works the best. Okay.
So we're going to go through this quick because it's
Right. So a little bit about the tandem rig, which a lot of prepackaged with the Mojo has in with this combination is simply a tandem rig like this. You'll have a 3-way swivel, which is there, and then you'll have a dropper, which is generally half the distance of the trailer.
So this dropping leg is a 4 to 5 foot. Then your trailing leg here on the other island 3-way is 8 to 10. You can customize this. This is another thing.
Right.
Whereby, the anatomy of this is close, but everything's going to lay all at the same angle. So this and your standing line all lay at the same angle. And the longer your trailer is, if you're going to run another Mojo head on it, we'll get to weight in a minute. This head, the longer this piece is here, the lower it's going to track to the ground. In some cases, I'll run a 4-foot dropper here, going a 6-foot piece here, and that'll keep that head, a solid 18 inches, 24 inches above that head, which is a different presentation when this head is banging along the bottom. It's in actually clean water, and it's forced to ride higher versus something back here. But again, you have other trailers which naturally ride higher, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Right. So Mono, anywhere from 80 to 120 pound. We like to use a little stiffer mono so it doesn't kink when you, when you store it. And again, you could have ball bearing snaps, you could have speed clips, you could customize any of the packaged Mojo sets. If you have to customize it a little bit, it makes it easier when, you have those, and to change things. A lot of times we're changing our Mojos and then we don't have to change the entire rig. There's
Snap it out.
right, you snap it out, which will give you that, combinations that, that work well. On our main line, we're using 50 or 65 pound Portland master braid. We find that braid works for us the best. It lasts long, it doesn't bleed, and again, it's very simple to use. And this is a sample of it, but you could customize the different lengths so that whatever works better for you, that day, and how deep you're fishing as well.
Just to get back to this tandem setup with a three-way, the tournament tactic is, okay, I use 120 pound mono, all right? It's subterranean, it's banging off all kinds of stuff. It gets a chink in the line, we'll just say, at least I got 60 pounds or 80 pounds working for me if there's a defect in it. I don't tie, I crimp everything. I don't need a knot coming out. I don't use, I use all ball bearing snap swivels, which are 220 pounds. I mean, there's going to be no failure from that three-way back
With our rig.
with these rigs for tournaments. When you start tying and using 60 pound and, I don't know, it tops off a rock, you get a big strike from a fish. I mean, some of these impacts are tremendous when they hit because these drags are set way up. You're trying to punch these large hooks into them immediately. It's a lot of force. And if you have a defect anywhere, a bad knot, because you're tying or there's a chink in the line, what's going to happen is you're going to get a separation and you're going to lose that fish. So as a tournament tactic, everything is crimped and basically it's overbuilt.
Okay. And then again, if you have any questions, we'll go over any of the slides. So again, there's a couple of different companies that make some different stuff that if you have to replace your lines for the tandem options, innovations, over the last few years, it's pretty much been standard Mojos, but a few people have come out with some different innovative ideas. One of them that I thought and I was impressed with last year was a nonpareil wind-on leader, which saves a lot of the tips on your rods and not having any three-way swivels to deal with. Now, one of the good things about it is that you're able to reel in the first dropper all the way up to the first dropper, which would then now bring the fish to you closer, 5 feet instead of it being 10 feet away. Because most of the time you lose a fish, especially trolling, is that last 10 feet. When you're reeling, the angler is excited, they're looking at the fish, and now you're grabbing the line, so you're not giving it any drag, and the fish turns, and then you lose the fish. So what's nice about this leader, and we've used them, is that you could wind it right on, and then you get to the, either to the dropper or you get the trailer closer to the boat. And that's especially if you have beginner fishermen. That's
We use these a lot when we charter because
it
you
saves
can
a
tell
lot of
them you want
tips.
not to roll up to the freeway, but they always do because they're excited about it. This prevents a lot of that. They usually see this big giant dropper head and they know they can't reel that through the guide, so they tend to stop. But as far as tournament side of things, I still wind up using the crimped and much heavier version. But this is a great innovation.
So you don't have to use 2 Mojos on these tandem rigs. We've experimented with a lot of different plugs, and especially with the spoons, because traditionally in the Northeast, the biggest fish every year have always been caught by Mojo spoons. Every year, wire lock rods and Mojo spoon combinations have always taken the largest fish in the state. So we didn't want to stop using our spoons, and so we would have a combination with the Mojo, using that as a downrigger instead of having to drag in the wire. After doing a bunch of charters with wire rods, once that fish hits, everybody they don't want to reel it in. So having a rod like this gives an angler some more sport to it, and they're not cranking in 300 feet of wire. And we could still effectively use spoons in our spread, and it works well. So Frank is going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Well, with respect to what Anthony just said, we don't have a diagram here, but I think, again, this is tournament tactics. You have your 3 weight and you have your dropper. Your dropper weight is basically the size or how many ounces it is dictated by depth. That's the job of the lower dropper, gets you to a depth. Now we're talking about different trailers with the tandem. All right, one of them can just be a simple Mojo head. And everybody makes the mistake where they start coming up with all these creative ideas that, okay, fine, I'm going to have I don't know, a 24-ounce head. Now I need a 12-ounce or a 10-ounce trailer. No, you don't, because the trailer's got nothing to do with getting it down. That's the job of the 24-ounce head. Your trailer, if you're using a Mojo, only needs to be like 4 ounces. It only needs enough stability to control this shad like this and keep this from spinning and rocking around. That's as much lead as you need. It doesn't, there's no other purpose. And 70 to 80% of your fish are going to come on this head. So now you don't have as much weight for them to swing around either. There's another mechanical advantage. But moving on from that, some of the other options are simply any plug without a lip. If you want a really light presentation, you could even use slider plugs.
Yeah, this is a Guide Secret striper slider, through wired, VMC hooks, and again, doesn't have a lip, so we're not worried about it controlling the weight, and it should swim pretty effectively, has a little sound.
And any other plug,
Darters.
simple darters. You can use any of these as trailing items, because what you have the ability to do is match what's going on. You know, they're all eating little sand eels and whatnot. You know, swinging a giant shad around or a bunker spoon is not necessarily going to get the job done. Although that dropper Mojo with the hook is going to get you to your depth and be able to fish in that zone effectively. You have the ability to keep changing your trailer to match the bait. Sometimes we'll wind up using, you know, like a herring spoon or a smaller,
Can bunker size.
a smaller spoon, which is a number 1. We're matching the profile. And again, it's always about the size or profile, and then the shape, and then the color. Color's always third on the list. So everyone goes color crazy, but it's really got to do a profile or a size first. And then, you know, there's of course your number 4. And we could talk about this. Is this the right time to talk about it?
What?
Why I want to utilizing this spoon?
Sure.
Over. Okay. When it comes to the spoons, there's other manufacturers out there. Okay. There's Reliable. There's Mojo. There's Spoon Fed. The problem is a lot of those spoons are meant to be used with wire only. Period. They need to be trolled slower, 2.5 knots, 2 knots, maybe 3 knots. The sweep on them is very big. They're very violent. Okay, Mojos don't work unless they're over 3 knots. That's really as low as it could go, because then it just doesn't flutter right in the water. That's where this spoon comes in. This spoon does the job of a spoon, and you can use it on a spoon rod with Mojo's spoon and wire system, but we also find this with the 8-ounce keel sweeps less, which means it's less violent when that rod is working with the spoon as a trailer. And it gives you that sweep of a spoon. You get the same pump with the right rod, but it gives you that vibration in the water and the flash in the water, which is what all Mojos lack. Because in the reality of the way people use Mojos, they just set their boat up at 3 knots, pick a bearing, go. All this is just slick back, and you got this little tiny tail going like this. That's as much movement as you got. If you take this thing behind it, sweeping that 3 to 4 feet left and right, now you got turbulence. Low light, they feel this movement. They don't feel this. This is why these produce big fish. And the point is, you can actually control these up to almost 4 knots without ripping the rod out of the rod holder. So basically, they function at Mojo speed. That's why this spoon is the one you use in conjunction with the tandem as a trailer.
And it also eliminates you having to have the wire rods and planers and drails, you know, 12, 16-ounce, 20-ounce drails. You're using your Mojo as your downrigger. You know, we were talking about, you know, just earlier this morning about a friend of mine who fishes up the Great Lakes. He's got 12 downriggers on his boat. You know, they all go to different lakes. We could use our Mojo as that downrigger ball. And then not only it's also a secondary point of contact for a fish.
Right.
So, you know, it eliminates a lot of that. And what's great about this rod compared to some of the other specialty rods that you need, or you know, one of these rods are multi-use. I mean, if you're chunking stripers or you know, or you're deep dropping for fluke, you know, 60, 80 feet of water, these rods will work the same way. So it's multi-use. Most of the time, what you have at home, you can convert now to use as a Mojo rod. If you have an old rod, old reel, and you want to spool it up, we've perfected over the years the things that we wanted to use and see in the Mojo rod and the way it acts. But it's not a complicated thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get started. And that's the beauty of it. You don't need the special wire rods and you know, something that you'd only use for that one type of fish. Yeah, and we do have a video clip that's going to be that we're going to show what the combination looks like. So as they had for wire rods for a long time with the wire, they had a depth chart design. We haven't seen a depth chart in a long time that was for just Mojos. So we're lucky enough that our Navionics and our Ray Marine sonar, using our Navionics charts, we're able to actually see our Mojos at different depths. So we were able to come up with the chart and using the different weights and the different depths to get a good idea. That also depends on your tides, it depends on your boat speed, currents, line diameter. There's a lot of things that are going to be, you know, changing this, but it is approximate.
It's a good rule of thumb.
It's a good rule of thumb. And as you can see, a lot of times our trailing Mojos, if this is just for Mojos, is lighter, okay? Because again,
when you get into this, even 25 foot, 20, when you start getting less than that, the problem is you need the scope. You need to get it away from the boat or you're not going to catch fish. Because what happens is 20 foot, 18 foot, all that, they know the boat went over their head. And they scatter and they push out from around the boat. And if their weights are too heavy and they're not back at least 150 plus feet, you're basically fishing, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 feet behind the boat, but there's nobody home because the fish pushed away because you just drove over their head. The deeper the water gets, the easier it truly is because the boat is not going to push them away or push the bait away. That's one of the biggest things you have to consider when you're shallow. And this is where this comes in again. You may not be able to use a tandem. You know, some areas we fish like by Round Shoal and all that around there is super shallow.
in the upper
I'll
bays.
just wind up using even 3-ounce heads or 4-ounce heads as singles. This way it pushes it back and I scope more out. And this is where, oh, can I ever use mono? Yeah, I have a rod set up with mono. Why? Because I want more resistance. Because I want more line out before I feel that Mojo head tap. I need to get it 200 feet away from the boat to catch a fish. And these are some of the things that you have to think about as far as little techniques or, you know, if the fish happen to be in shallower water versus just going with braid in the thinnest diameter, you know, because it cuts through the water, it's going to hit faster. You wind up putting 60 pound mono on the same rod, it's going to go back another 40 feet just because of hydrodynamics. So you have to think about these things and what you're looking to accomplish. But this chart here is pretty handy as a reference. And again, boat speed, tide, wind, all that plays into effect. So I don't know if they can see it at home or whatever, but you can snap a clip of it. I'm going to wind up adding the scope or the distances back that each one of these here yield with 50 pound braid, but that's not on here yet. But that's coming soon. So you'll know that, okay, yeah, say, I don't know, 20 to 30 feet of water, 12 ounce Mojo with or without a trailer is going to hit and you're going to wind up putting out 120 foot line with 50 pound braid. So I'm going to add that to it at some point. But this is a good reference for now.
All right, so equipment, as I talked about before, you don't have to have anything crazy. 6.6 rod, 40, 2 speeds, good because you get quicker retrieval. We like to use Cortland Master Grade, 50 to 65 pounds. You know, now we're starting to make some custom rods. Mojo just came out with his Mojo rod. There's a really lot of nice features about it, with the slick butt, super light. You know, this is giving an angler, you know, a lot of performance. It's also important, Greg, that the tip still has some flex to it, so that if you are using some of the lures and spoons, that you have, you know, some action to it. Again, the butts, having a slick butt is important too, especially when you're using outrodders. And being able to pull the rod out of it. I mean, a lot of times you get a little weary about it because, you know, a beginner angler is trying to, you got 30-pound fish on there and they're trying to pull it out. So having the slick butts also helped out a lot.
Real quick, this rod here is, this is a Kettle Creek rod that's going to be available specifically for Mojo fishing. And again, I don't know what this page or doesn't take. With the tip on this is specifically used in some cases to get that spoon rod feel with your tip. But also then again, it's got the slimline slick butt, which is huge because you don't have to fight to get them out of outrodders, even though this outrodder here that Mojo makes relieves that problem completely, but people still find themselves trying to muscle them out. And when they have EVA foam on them, they tend to grip the rod holder and they're a little bit cumbersome. But what I really want to touch on, since this is the tournament techniques, is 2 speeds. We're not going to talk about taking a 4-0 out of your basement and throwing it on a rod and going out and catching fish with, you know, Mojo techniques. Why you need a 2-speed is not because the fish is so big and you need to drop it into a low gear. That's not why it's there. You can actually leave this when you're fishing it, you pop this into low gear, and you stay at speed. You can actually do your retrievals comfortably and easily with that low gear, completely at troll speed. Now, why are you going to do that? Because you can actually work a rod like that, that's out there with a tandem, and start retrieving it as it's swimming up to the boat, as you're trolling under speed. And then you can also set it back down. But it allows you a lot of control when the boat is moving to give you different presentations in the water. And believe it or not, it's a tremendous, that's a tremendous little tip. Because everyone just, it's not a set it and forget it thing. You need to actually work it by actually working a rod or actually doing stuff like that where you're retrieving it under wet. And with most high-speed retrieval reels or the old, you're not going to do it. It loads up too much. But with these 2 speeds, you can sit there and you could be a 12-year-old and just sit there and literally crank it right in with no effort. And it gives it a different presentation and it promotes strikes.
So the outrodders, which is one of the most important tools that we use because it enables us to spread out our spread and also keep everything from tangling up. Now, one of the nice features about this rod holder is that you're able to, after the fish is caught, you're able to pull out the pin.
Instead of, but, you know, depending on your gunnel, you know, this is a little bit cumbersome because it's pulled back this way, so you have to pull the rod this way to pull them out. And I'm pretty tall, and it's still a little awkward. You know, it's one of the only rod holders where you get that pickup, so much force here involved. All you do is literally pull a pin, pick it up like this, and anyone can pull it out, and you're right on your fish. So this is a staple on the tournament side of things on the boats. You can get away with the other stuff that's welded for $50. It's just a simple T rod holder. But for tournament reasons, you do not want to sit there and just have the boat dragging at the fish. You just want to get that rod and get control and be able to, you know, battle them a little bit depending on how hard they're pulling. And this, you know, seconds count sometimes, and you know, I'm not making it more than it is, but it does all matter in the end. But this is one of the best outrodders that's on the market.
And especially one of the safety features is having a safety line.
Yep.
And this is nice because it's nylon coated. It's also stretches out to 12 feet,
which is
a lot better than some of the little short lines.
Because a lot of people will make their own nylon cord. Great, so your nylon cord's, I don't know, 2 feet long. We wind up utilizing this, pulling it,
And then
at least with this safety line, once this is out, you don't have to worry about sitting there fighting to unclip it. You can work this all over the cockpit of your boat and move. That's why it's 12 feet long. It's not 12 feet long. If the rod goes over, it's going to be dragging back there. It's 12 feet long because you don't have to waste time trying to unclip something. Don't get me wrong, you know, I think the IGFA is going to be involved if someone reaches around, you know, and unclips it at some point. But at the same time, you can fight the whole fish from beginning to end with this exact setup. And that's why it's used and favored.
Right, and that's why we use them on our boat. And we've been using those rod holders for years. And we haven't lost a rod yet. And especially for charters, it's functional. So again, here's kind of a step-by-step. Frank showed you, you know, where you're placing the rod in there, you're lifting it up, and then you're pulling the rod straight out instead of away from the boat. Our spread. So because we can get dialed in with different depths, with using the different weighted Mojos, we're able to fish a lot more lines out than the typical striped bass trolling. So back in the day when we were trolling 2 spoons, it was difficult to deploy other things because those spoons with the large sweep and having the wire would catch everything. So now we're able to deploy a 5-rod system and having 2 rods on each side of an outrigger and then 3 rods in the back, using different weights so that when we're making a sharp turn, we don't have anything that's crossing over each other. And that's the important thing, that you know what you have on everything, and then the degree that the lure, that the Mojo is going away from the rod, and having the ability to, if you have to turn or to maneuver, because as you can see, there's always a lot of boats out in those trolling areas, you need to maneuver a lot.
Right, and it's all about maneuvering, knowing what you have. It's all time management. You know, the more time your lures, the more lures you have are in that zone, especially if the bite's tough, increases your odds tremendously. Again, these are all small details, but I'm not going to sit there and take some lazy turn, right, because I don't want this to cross over this. I know exactly where everything is. I may speed up to make the turn just because I want to make the turn and get back on a specific line. Or like I said previously, this stuff is really easy. You can pull up five rods, probably within 45 seconds, literally spin the boat around or run the boat back up and redeploy right back out, same depth, and not even miss a step. And it takes you minutes versus like 20 minutes.
So as if you could see in the picture that our 2 rods that are the closest together, you could see the angle of the line.
This one's like this,
right,
and this
and
one's
then,
like that.
Right. Actually, our sonars are able to pick up these closer depth Mojos, and especially when we're deploying them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when you have the captain's job and the mate's job. But you can see that we don't have everything all at the same. We're constantly changing our spread and constantly moving things around so that we can see what works.
Like typical spooning, 30 feet of water, 300 foot of line. That rod's 300 foot of line, that rod's 300 foot of line. Can't really make turns because they will communicate. When you're in that water column that's over 30 feet, then you can start doing this. You can actually say, I don't know, so you're in 50 foot of water. You can drop that heavier head down, punch it right behind the boat. It's like right down there. Then you're going to take this one, same depth, but you're going to use a lighter head on purpose. So you're stroking another 50 feet out. You can do circles and they will never find each other. You'll never get a tangle. And that's what you consciously have to do on the tournament side. You do it off the back, you do it off your corner rods, and then your outriders.
So this was from one of our charters yesterday. We wanted to show what the action of the rod is with trolling a spoon. So this is
Mojo spoon combo, and it's more or less what you look for, which is what you look for with your traditional wire rods.
So you can see it has the similar thrust as the wire rods, and you're still using a Mojo system on it. And you're getting the action from the spoon as well as having the Mojo bring the spoon down to the correct depth that you want to fish.
Play it one more time because now this is another tournament tip and regular fishing tip, which most people.
I should have put like an asterisk on it.
So you see this? If you stand in the boat and long enough, everyone knows what that looks like after a while. 30 feet, 40 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet. I don't know, 20 knot wind day, no wind. How fast are you supposed to go? 3 knots, 3.5 knots, 5 knots? Well, what else is going with the current? What else is going against the current? See that rod tip? When that rod tip does that, that's exactly the speed you're supposed to go. That's your speed indicator. And when the situation changes and you flip the boat around, you might be doing 4 knots that direction. As long as that one rod is swinging like that, you know exactly how fast you're supposed to go. And that's where, most people don't get that right. And it costs them fish because they're either too slow or too fast. But that's one of the most important things you can take away from today's seminar.
Right, so one of our things, this is Jason, and Jason's usually in charge of organizing and getting all the rigs together, as well as running one side of the boat. And a simple 2.5 gallon bucket or 5 gallon bucket, we like the 2.5s in the pictures of 5, but we like the 2.5s because in the rough water, it's less likely to tip over. But what we'll do is we'll dedicate one bucket for one color, and all the different heads are in there. And then what we'll do is take our handful of plastics and just drop them in the middle, so that you have a bucket that's dedicated for white, a bucket that's dedicated for chartreuse, and we keep one on one side and one on the other side of the boat. And we're able to organize when we're changing our weights, when we're changing our sizes, when we're rebait, putting new shades on. It's very simple and very easy to have. Now, some new buckets and fancier buckets, I know Yeti makes one with the ring inside that has the hook holders.
Or to drop in inserts.
You could drop inserts, take a cover, cut out the center. There's a lot of things that you could do to make it. But what the best part about this is, at the end of the tournament day, when we're cleaning the boat and we're going over some things, and Jason's grabbing that bucket, brings it up onto land, washes everything out, and everything is in that bucket ready to go for
You
the
pop
next
a
day.
couple holes in the bottom, you literally just hose everything out. All of the Mojos are pretty much set up just like this, hanging tear down, which is what you want, okay, when they're sitting in the bucket. And it's hanging like this, everything gets washed, rinsed, and it dries. Your hooks don't rust, this doesn't knot up. It's a simple, effective way to do it. And again, the 2.5 gallon bucket is key, because when it is a little rough, you don't have all this heavy weight of hide, and it just tends to tip over. So we find that that's best. And it's like a $3 or $4 investment.
Right, and it's an easy way to keep everything. So the captain's job. So the captain's job is to get yelled at a lot, okay? And that's usually one of my jobs, is I'm usually driving the boat. So the communication of the 2 anglers or the 3 anglers in the back is going to be telling me my speed, and not to constantly asking me how fast we're going, slow down, speed up, things like that. Also, when deploying all the lines, you want to make sure you're going straight, and you're going to continue to go straight. And then you're constantly communicating. So when we talk about tournaments and why we did so well last year, and I kind of revert back to a book that I read years ago by a bass angler that fished the PASS. And the amount of work and effort that they put in for one weekend tournament is what I thought we needed to do for saltwater tournament. And being able to communicate with your crew, getting along is very good, is important. A lot of times people approach a saltwater tournament, they show up on Friday night, they go to the captain's meeting, they pay for everything, they have a few beers, a sandwich, and then they all get to the boat in the morning. But for us, we already pre-fished 7 days in a row. And that's why that one tournament we did in the Stafford police tournament last year, that only 11 fish were caught, and we caught 3 or 4 of them out of the whole field of 90-something boats, is because we fished a very specific area for almost 6-7 days prior to that. Our fuel bill, sometimes on an average tournament, could be $3,000 to $4,000. So we put in that extra effort of doing that. Now, not all of us have full-time jobs. Frank's a full-time captain. I'm a teacher. Jason's in sales. So between us, we have to make this work. Now, marking locations on a plot. At the end of a season, we could count up to 2,000 spots that we mark on our plot. And also knowing what those marks are.
Yeah.
So many times people just have numbers. We try to name stuff. So like if Frank's fishing charters all week long and he's hitting fish in certain spots, he's telling me, these fish were 12-pound, 20-pound fish, right? And that's not what we're looking for in a tournament. So he's constantly telling me where the fish are. We're syncing all of our devices, which is what I'm going to show you next, and we're marking things and naming things.
One of the things with today's electronics, which he's going to talk to you about specifically, is it's not like the old days where you could just hit a mark and it's mark 1 and you can call it, I don't know, the bass hole or something, that's the spot. You can put so much information once you hit that X. You can code a date into it, the size fish, it's going to in the time of day, and you can even start dumping weather conditions in that X. So now you're automatically keeping an electronic log. Like you can keep your old log by pen and paper. But now I can go over and go, hey, I like this piece. We got a couple X's there. I click on those X's, and it's going to give me that feedback. Well, we were here 2 years ago, and we bought this on this date, and this is what it looked like. And you have so much information coming back at you. It's It's tremendous, and especially when you're thinking about where you could go within bounds of a tournament. Maybe it's, I don't know, say it's a totally different area in Massachusetts or otherwise. If you have your marks there, it's just a quick reference to tell you what you did, what you caught, and what the conditions were. So the electronics make things a lot easier today too.
Right, and the cruise is very important too, because a lot of times these tournaments are multi-day tournaments. So when we're getting back, we're cleaning our rigs with fresh water, we're organizing our buckets, we're sharpening our hooks, and we're organizing all our tandem rigs into Ziplocs, we're washing down the boat, we're making sure we're ready for the next day. And that's an important thing too, is to have that type of support when we get back to the dock. Everybody has a job to do, and we know what it is the minute we are done weighing our fish. And, you know, it's an important thing, and Jason's been dialed in for the last year, and he doesn't let us touch anything when we get back. He wants to make sure everything's organized. So areas that we fish. Now, I know we fish pretty much from Long Beach Island north, and a lot of you guys may fish Long Beach Island and south, and including the Delaware Bay. But all these places that we're fishing historically hold striped bass. So, for example, Sandy Hook, okay? Having moving water, ribs, between large channels. You could convert that to Cape May, the Cape May ribs, the channels that are coming into the Delaware Bay. Those are the same areas that we like to fish. We like to fish the moving tides, usually 2 hours before and 2 hours after a flood. And a lot of times we'll move with the tide changes. And having a navionics chart on our boat and on our apps gives us easy access to find out where the different tides are. But again, some of our biggest fish were caught between these channels. And these are the highways for the fish to go up. And then during certain tides, they'll chase the bait into these 25 to 30 foot depth zones. And a lot of times it's a great area to fish because of the amount of bait, structure, and this is a good opportunity also for when the fish come up so that you have the blitzes. A year ago, right in that spot, we caught 52 on a plug, you know, top water plug.
So the other thing is, you know, these aren't collegiate fish. So basically, they're going to come up and down. You know, in the south they call them rockfish. I mean, they're structured-based fish. It's a bass. I mean, just like a freshwater bass. It has lateral lines, feels vibration. It's a structure and bait-oriented fish, which means year after year after year, if you do it enough, they will and you know occupy those same haunts. They go up and down those same travel areas. But what Anthony, I think, is trying to really show you is, yeah, great. You're not just trolling along, okay, the Ambrose here, okay, or Sandy Hook Channel. What you're actually able to do with these, he's going to talk about this. I can see these little bumps in here now. It doesn't look like just one funky fathom line like this. You can see this little area right here, or this area right here, this pinch point here. I'm not just going to come up here or run through these fathom lines. I'm actually going to come through some of these pinch points and do things a little different. Because believe it or not, these biomasses, yeah, there's a biomass when everyone out there can catch fish, but they also stage up. A little group will linger longer. There might be a little patch of fish over here. It's like 20 or 30 fish, or sometimes fewer. Remember in Massachusetts, we actually marked 5 individual fish on a piece and caught all 5. Every time we went over it, there's one less fish marked. I mean, it can be that specific, and that matters. So with these contour lines now stacked up, you have so much more wonderful detail of all these little areas and borrow pits and what's been dredged now than ever before. And these are just huge tools that help you find these little pieces, even on 3-mile lines or whatever for deeper water. You can see all these little areas that should work out. And if you put the time in, you'll find out it does work out. And then you'll remember it, and then you'll see year after year after year. You've been doing this for 20 years. You got a lot of information to pull from.
Right, and a lot of the charts, because we're using the navionics charts, we have 1 foot contour detail on our charts, and it's showing us these little pieces that another friend of ours would be like, why are you guys over there? I don't see anything on my chart.
Yeah, all this in the channel.
Right, and it's being updated because all the information that I'm gathering, I'm also updating for community ed. So if I ran through this yesterday and they did some dredging, I'm updating my charts. You take your chart tonight, you download the latest and freshest data, you're now getting all the information that I have prepared the day before. So that's a good thing, especially on the Jersey coast with all the dredging and all the storms that we've had. Our landscape is totally changed. Plastic charts are, a thing of the past, because what they made 2-3 years ago is so different today. And we're collecting this data. Our phones are connected to our plotters, and we are live updating our contours and the contour changes, as well as structure. We're finding new structure. The storms are, bringing up some rock piles that haven't been there, and we're able to find it. But again, that could be Cape May, or that's Sandy Hook. In this example, along channel edges, I know I've done some tournaments up in the Delaware Bay. It's very similar in the early spring. Where the first fish you're gonna get, up in those shallow areas, up to 15, 20 feet, the shoals. That's where the sun is going to warm up the water the quickest. And that's when your crabs, your little lobsters, your, the shrimp and stuff start coming out of the mud. And those are going to be those first points that you're catching, you're catching those early season fish, like, the last month or so. So this is round shoal, but I know in the upper Delaware Bay, we've used the same tactic and scored as well. So that's a good area. Another type of area is rock piles. Here's historically the Shrewsbury rocks. I mean, I think more striped bass have been caught there over generational historical periods than any other place on the Jersey Shore. But here, it's just a line of rocks. Now, what we were talking about before is a lot of times that when we're fishing areas like this, we'll very rarely or never go across them. We'll always go up and down each side of the structure. Having this 1 foot contour detail really enables us to get close to the structure without getting a lot of snags. I bet you if you scuba dive on these rocks, because they go from 30 feet to 10, 15 feet, there's a lot of your spoons on there. I'm sure there's a lot of umbrella rigs over the time on this. So what we'll do is when those bigger fish are here and they're set up, we'll go along the side. Now, when Frank was talking about retrieving and getting all our gear up, another tournament tip is we very, very rarely, if we hook a fish, continue to go, okay? And turn around and then come back, and then we go back over the spot. We never do that, okay? Once we hook a fish, I mark the spot, we bring up all the gear, we land a fish, we bring up all the gear, and I hightail it back to do the same exact troll again. We never waste, because if there's a few fish right here, and again, sometimes we won tournaments because we've caught a few fish, is that those fish might only be there temporarily. So we want to get back to them. We don't want to take 20 minutes to drag our gear back and then do that same thing again. So as soon as we hit the fish, my finger hits mark the spot. These guys get all the rigs up, the 2 or 3 other people on our team, and then we land the fish, and then I'll quickly motor up and go back the same. Because the tides here and the currents here might affect the way and the fish will attack the bait on a certain direction. If we turned around and went back over that way, they may not even look at it because it's not what they're used to seeing, or it's not what they want. So we're going to do the exact same thing over and over. So we may go over that spot, continue a little bit, turn around, do it again. We may do that twice. We don't get a hit, then we'll continue on to go look for other fish. But again, having that 1 foot contour detail enables us to find little high spots that may only hold 1 or 2 fish, and maybe the right fish onto those, in those areas. Again, small areas like this, small contour changes like this, and again, you gotta make sure, because the offshore area is very close to that 3 mile line, and you don't wanna go over it, okay? You gotta be very careful not to go over the 3 mile line. So artificial reefs, again, most charts will mark them, but having this ability to see all the different, contour changes in between the wrecks and wreck piles could be areas that these fish hold up. Another area like right here, which I'll give you a closer look. But again, artificial reefs are all down the Jersey coast and up into the Delaware Bay. Some of my biggest bass that I've caught in the Delaware Bay has been on those artificial reefs. But again, be careful because some of them are on the offshore 3-mile line. And again, during a tournament, you don't want to be caught because you could be disqualified if you go over in that 3-mile line. But again, artificial reefs, a great place to look. Contour changes, I keep talking about it because it's very important. Some of these areas may only be 50, 75 feet in circumference, so it's important. What we would attack, try to keep the depth consistent. We like deeper water. Sometimes it holds the bigger fish later on in the day. Even structures along the shore. Could be jetties, could be sewer pipes, cables, outflows, anything that has some structure to it that will hold some bait. Now, all of these pictures that I've shown you, I've taken off of the computer on the Navionics website. It's a free web app, and you can at least get an idea of the places that you want to fish, and including satellite overlay. So these type of structures, when we do this presentation up in Connecticut, I show a lot of the same things because it's a lot of the same places that they're catching fish. Let's see here. So having the ability, and this is a little sales pitch about having Navionics, is that we're able to sync our phones, our iPads, and our charts and our plotters. We are sponsored by Ray Marine, so we're using the new Ray Marine technology on the Axioms. But having the ability to, when Frank's fishing, he comes home, I can download his information. Now I have it on my iPad, and the next day while I have a break or lunch break, I could then sift through that information and mark some other spots that are similar to it. So if he's catching fish consistently in 65 feet of water, I could then start looking for other areas that have the very same type of structure and the very same type of contour changes. Generally, those will hold fish. Again, we're prepping 7 to 10 days before any tournament. This weekend, we have a big one. It's New Jersey against New York. And we've been prepping this tournament since January, building up our information network and also talking to other guides in other areas and knowing that this is a pretty, time that fish change. One day they're here and the next day they're heading somewhere to spawn or they disappear, the weather changing, cold fronts, things like that. So we're building this network for our first big tournament. And because it's us against New York, it's an important one because, there's a lot of nice, kind words going back and forth of who's going to win. Since we fish in the Raritan Bay, we share that area with New York fishermen. We're friends with a lot of them. And again, it doesn't come by chance that we hit these big fish. It comes by prepping. And having the ability to have everything together makes it easy. So then I just if we're taking Jason's boat out, I just download the information to his boat. We can take his boat out.
So all of these tools and all this wonderful stuff works, but you can't catch and win or place and do well in tournaments if you don't fish where those fish are. And just like people do with the collegiates offshore, before they go offshore to the canyon, they're sitting there studying the temperature charts, their chlorophyll charts. He's looking at it, I'm looking at it. Everyone's got a different opinion on the same data. Even, Robson has a different opinion on the same data. And then you all zoom in and make your decisions based on all that data. With the mapping and everything that they have now, because this is a structure-based fish, you take your weather, your tides, and all of that included, but everyone's looking at different spots within bounds. And in the end, collectively, we make a decision on the best information and where we want to go. So what they do in the offshore world, you kind of do in the inshore world, but instead of looking at, sea surface temps and chlorophyll, we're kind of looking at structure, bait, and who does what, where, and within the limitations of said tournament. There might be a place I know about that fish is great, you just can't fish there. So now we have to make do. So what is good there, we try to mimic elsewhere, even if nobody has data on it. We may still want to look at it and to see if it actually is going to pan out in that same contour depth and that same scenario. So
right. So having this on your mobile phone, the fish range, color ranges, we could delineate each color to what depths we want. This is a freshwater image, but Frank can say, yeah, I caught my fish from 45 to 55 feet of water. I could go right away and set the whole coast of New Jersey to 45 to 50 feet. Now I'm looking at, okay, I can see my pink color here, but now I'm looking for these contour changes, okay? And now I'm isolating areas. So I make marks. I go, mark 1, we want to check this out. Mark 2, we want to check that out. And then when he comes back, I'll come to the boat and I'll sync that data right to his machine. Tomorrow he goes out and he's going to look at those spots. So that's a great feature to have, being able to have all your devices connected. And we could community share as well. So we could be able to sync our phones, our same account, and be able to use it as a team. So new is going to be the sonar chart shading, which is going to be great. Same way of looking at the detail rendering of your contours of the sea floor, so that we could look for like a lot of these hidden areas and points and creek beds and stuff like that also hold fish. A lot of the striped bass, a lot of them are also resident fish. So in the back bays, you could catch fish all season long by finding some of these little deep channels and stuff like that. But this is coming. You'll be able to upload this on your Platinum Plus or Hot Maps, and you'll get this great feature. I know there's another company that has that. They charge like $800 for a very small area. And again, this is just giving us more advantages, especially if you use it. We constantly, people talk to us at the end of a tournament, why, you guys are always winning, you guys are always doing well. And I said, if you put in the amount of hours that we do in a tournament, you could win too. Those professional bass guys, they're pre-fishing those lakes months and months in advance. They're constantly going there, taking information and collecting that. That's what they're doing. So we're taking that same technique to saltwater, and it's been paying off. Again, our costs are a lot, but still, it'll pay off in the end by having this network that we've built over time. And it doesn't come by chance. Some people, hey, they'll show up and they'll hit the right fish, but it's not consistent, especially when the fishing's tough. Striped bass fishery is also in trouble, and we're part of a lot of conservation groups that are trying to save the stripers. We only take what we need to take minimally. We release most of our fish in most of our tournaments. We'll come to those scale the fish is alive. We have striper tubes on the boat. We have large live wells, and we pull our 40-pound, 50-pound fish out that's still alive, and we're able to release most of them successfully.
And another tip is why? Well, just because you want to be a conservationist? No. The live fish and the dead fish, if they were the same weight alive, the dead fish is going to be less. Maybe by ounces, maybe by a half a pound, depending on how you take care of the fish. You just throw it in a cooler, you throw it in a cooler where it's sitting on ice, where it's burning it. You throw it in a cooler with ice and saltwater slurry, or is it alive? If it's alive, it's maintaining its weight.
Right.
Simple.
And fresh water is the enemy. Fresh water is not a good thing. Fresh ice, putting a fish on it, it's not good. And a lot of times, we were fishing a marlin tournament, and a buddy of mine had a fish that was just the right size, would have won a lot of money. And when he got back into the dock, he's like, yeah, we measured a keeper out there. I said, are you sure it's still a keeper? And when they measured it, it shrunk an inch and a half, which, there's a difference of $500,000, because, these fish, if it's contact with fresh water, will shrink. And you want to keep them hydrated, and it's important to the conservation aspect of it. We try to teach that to our charters, that we don't like to overfish, and
That's a quick 2 cents. The tournaments are fun, generates money, interest, people spend money on gear, a lot of fuel is burned. FLW, that was all artificial, and you had to release the fish alive. If the fish didn't swim away, you got 0 credit for it. You had to use striper tubes and all of this. Honestly, I'd like to see a lot of these tournaments, which, is the problem with some of them, where they need to really adapt that. You need to, have that angler who wants to fish this stuff. They were physical, these were full-blown teams sponsored by Yamaha, boats, you know, contender boats or regulator boats, whichever boat. And they sponsored that team to fish. You know, we're sponsored by Regulator and then Rain Green. And pretty much you had these striper tubes. You had to keep that fish alive. And if that fish died, it was a zero. And how to be released. And that platform would be good. The difference is they would lose a lot of people who would participate in the tournament because unfortunately the angler doesn't want to make the investment in the gear, which would basically be investing in the fish, which would basically be investing in, you know, this tournament's not getting such a bad rap for killing. But that's my 2 seconds on that.
Does anybody have any questions? I know we kind of talked a lot, and anything that we could go over or show you or do some demonstrations. I have my iPad. I can show you the Navionics apps on the phone.
It's not just a lure or gear or speed or real choice, 1 speed versus 2 speed, and those Navionics charts. It's all of that as a whole that yield a result.
And this is our charter business. We have Staten Island and Atlantic and Highlands and Point Pleasant. Frank runs a 36 contender walk around. So comfort. Jason has a 26 regulator, and I have a Jones Brothers. So between our boats, we're able to cover all different aspects from light tackle, fly fishing to offshore. Last year we had a phenomenal tuna popping season, and you know, we're able to cover a lot of area with those boats.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you're fishing the spoon with the Mojo, how important is it to have it like flat, parallel with the water? You can fish it straight up.
Oh, no, you basically, you want that line to be closer to the water. If you're fishing it straight up, it's forcing it up. The angle, you're creating more of an angle than you necessarily would want. Your desired effect would be on the side. Yeah, that's what's desired. Like a lot of people, even when I run the Mojos off the back, one of the things I do is I don't like it coming off the rod tip sometimes. I like it closer to the water. So I actually just take a number 10 rubber band, grab that one.
Do we have any questions online? You could just post them.
So it's coming right off the reel handle. I get that hit, blows the rubber band apart, and then it's on the rod. So I just don't like that high angle.
Do we have any questions online, or anybody have any information?
And you went to the number 4 size spoon because it created the side-to-side movement?
I like, yeah, because the number 4 spoon comes with an 8-ounce keel weight. There's also a 12-ounce keel weight, which when I fish a lot of wire with the wire rods, I prefer the heavier keel weight. So the way this comes, just like this, out of the package, is basically ready to go. Now, it depends. If I'm tournament fishing, I'll only use the bigger spoon. No ifs, ands, or buts, because that's what I want. I don't want a fish that's going to be a smaller fish. When I'm trolling certain areas, I'll change my profile and go down to a number 1 because I'm matching the bait or what they're eating a little closer, or I'll even not even use a spoon in 1 or 2 cases. And I'll wind up either just using another shad or a dart or a smaller plug. There's a lot of times people like use SP minnows and whatnot on, we're catching on it. Well, I'll put one down there that's a darter version of it, and it doesn't have a lip, so it doesn't dig. And then I'll get that same reaction on that smaller profile. They won't eat the Mojo because it's bigger profile, the dropper, but that's getting it down to depth or wherever it is I'm marking the fish in the sounder. But I prefer in tournaments, I'll always just use the number 4.
Right, because we're targeting very specifically. You know, we don't care if we catch 2 fish.
I didn't know if you were using the number 4 because it was heavier to limit the swing.
I use it as an indicator like that.
It impacts the Mojo on the bottom, right? The smaller.
Right. Well, what happens is when you get that swing on it, depending on how heavy your Mojo head is, it also has an effect on the head. It helps with the regularity. Like if I'm 70 feet and I know I'm concentrating on the spoon, I'll just use a 32 ounce on there. The spoon's not going to pull on that 32. But on the other side, I'll go all the way down to a 24. Or as long as I can feel that tap bottom, I'll go down to a 20 because I want that spoon on the other side that's sweeping to take that head that's bouncing on the bottom and just pulling it all over the place to make it act wounded or differently than just something that swims along straight.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it a lot too. It's deploying our baits. It's important that I get the boat to speed prior to deploying, because what will normally, you know, when people, you know, the boats are neutral, they drop their baits down, they put the boat in gear, get to 3, 3, 2, then everything's all over the place. So I'll get the boat to speed and they'll start deploying the rods, And then Frank will look at those tips and he'll say, you know, Ant, bump it up a little bit or slow it down a little bit. And we can tell over the years how that rod tip is reacting so that we know that our lure is, or the spoon or the Mojo is doing the job.
And this has to do now with, oh yeah, can I just use a pen slammer or a tsunami, whatever? Sure. You want to get dialed in and do it the right way, you have to get, this is where it's different. Now you need to specialize yourself and have the right tip and the right rod that's completely set up for that specific type of fishing. Because that feedback is tremendous. If you use a broomstick, it'll eventually catch something, but you're not going to get any feedback from it.
Okay.
I got one for you on the feed here. Matthew asks, any different tactics for fishing schools with menhaden when they are thick? Emphasis on thick. And he says separation from the fleet in the school.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question because a lot of times, where do all the boats want to do? They want to jump on top of the school of fish. So what a lot of times is we'll look at, or I'll look at where the schools are and I'll try to find a pattern that those schools are doing. And a lot of times I'll fish behind it a little bit because what happens is, what are the bass going to go after? Those sweet, slow fish. And a lot of times we'll start hitting those back areas. We'll you never go through a school of fish. I mean, it's just bad etiquette. But a lot of times we'll fish outside and away from other people. Most of the time, our winning fish come from an area that people are like, why are you over there? And we're picking very specific fish. Those fish we caught, and I keep bringing it up, that one tournament, we caught those 4 fish in a matter of 20 minutes, and that was it for the day. But we knew this little piece of structure held a few fish consistently for the last 7 days, and we didn't touch it. Nobody would know about it because it's not your traditional place. They all went, off of Long Beach Island, or they all went off of the pier. We had a spot that we knew there was a few fish, right time, right tide, caught those 2-3 fish, and then for us, we were done for the
To
day.
be more pointed with his direct question, when you have everyone there on that lumber pod, they're all snagging and dropping, we all know what they're doing. 99% of the time, those guys aren't even thinking about the bottom, right? What they're wind up catching is that mid-column fish. Say they're all 20 pounders, 15, 30, doesn't make a difference. Those are the active fish, okay, that they're catching. There's bigger fish to be had, usually in and around the outsides of it.
Right.
So even if I'm on a charter where, we don't want to troll today, I'll start by trolling 2 rods. I will circle them, and I will bend that rod, and I will pull a fish out that is usually consistently larger. Then we can go join the party, and they can do their live lining or whatever they like to do. I'm not a snag and drop guy by any length. You can snag it and then rehook it. You're going to, spend all this money on here and you're using a $2 freaking Chinese snag hook that's garbage, going to bend out. At least rehook it on a real circle hooker, get it the right way, or net your bait like if you want to be a bait fisherman. But that's a whole other agenda. But I do that. I do circle those guys, staying on the outskirts of them, and we will pull.
And the larger fish are usually not the ones active in that school going after that school, and we'll catch those fish on the outskirts. And then you don't have to deal with all the pressure. All these boats that run over the fish, they're just pushing the fish down. Then the fish are gonna move deeper because generally those bunkers or shut off. So a lot of times we'll fish on the outskirts, versus going close to.
Anything else?
Anybody else? Yes, question.
Can you go back to the screen that shows how it's rated from the leader, the 3-way?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we'll get.
I know you're here. I mean, this is a sort of, this is more or less to scale, but just small.
Oh,
This is like a 1 foot drop for the 2 foot, so it would be 5 foot and 10 foot, but these are the actual components.
and you like using these guys?
I like,
The
for
modern-
tournament reasons, there's no other way to go. Print it. You don't want to, no nuts. Why trust them up? You don't have to just print it.
Yeah, so this is, just.
Not to mention, the thickness of this doesn't knot well. And the way that this is super rigid, it has no memory, so it doesn't knot well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, you mentioned the double hook as opposed to the single. What was the difference? You want to use the double as your higher?
Oh.
It's going to be.
You mean like this setup right here?
Yeah.
We have, no, a lot of times we'll only have an extra hook on there is if we're fishing tournaments. And for hookup ratio, especially if the fish are short striking. But And it's easy to do. You're just gonna, you could have a large eye hook, put it on, and just get a little meat, and you're not gonna affect the vibration of the tail. But again, if after we catch our first 1 or 2 fish, we're going to take that off, and not have it on the bait anymore. So we'll only use that trailer, again, charters, you get people on the boat that, that don't know how to wait for the strike. And then also for tournaments, just as a little protection to get started. But generally, we rather fish just a single hook, and it's just easier to release the fish unharmed. Most of the fish, I mean, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that we've been doing this a lot, have got hooked, Mojos. They're generally up in the mouth area that's easy to.
But with the stinger, it could happen,
Right.
And I'm not an advocate of it when I normally fish, but with the tournament situation, I just don't want to lose any fish that happens to show up. And I just bring this real quick, before I made mention of, when you have these larger versions with the single hook, which I prefer, all you do is to put the tandem on, you just short rig the nose of the shad. So you don't run the nose up to here, and that allows your stinger to be placed properly there. And then when the skirt lays back, it's pretty much ending where this other hook is. And that's how you can elongate it, by just rigging it slightly shorter, which I don't know if everyone can see or not, but it's just short rig.
Yeah, we'll leave it
You
as
can have
the
the
guys
tandem
come up, take a
look
look.
at it versus the single.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I got one more question for you.
good,
So I catch a lot of fish in the winter
okay.
and the fall. I don't have that much success in the spring. Is there anything that is different that you know of?
Have you Mojo fished in the fall and winter?
I always Mojo fish in the fall, yeah.
Okay.
In the springtime, it's always seems to be a lot more rough getting out there and
Okay.
trying to troll around, and there's not as many boats out there.
Okay. Like I told everybody everything, but at the same time, in the early spring, okay, down here, like Nashville and all this, the fish will come up. There's pretty much a window. It's 10 days to 2 weeks. You'll get these little groups of fish. They're not gonna claim residency or stack up. They move through. You have to be there when they're there. And it's easy to almost see sometimes. If I go out there every day, you'll see the gannets high on in the morning. You may not even Mojo fish. You'll just throw plugs to a sport jig. They're gonna eat because they're usually a body that's moving up. Then you'll hear about them in Raritan Bay. Now in Raritan Bay, talk to anybody there, recreational or even all these short, over the last 2 years, did a pretty good job with everyone's fishing a Mojo. We're all Mojo experts on top of it, but it's that productive, that simple. It literally, every single boat is doing this. And what happens is, like he had mentioned, that bay in the back, that round shoal, that lower Raritan Bay, that's where all those smaller fish are going, and they'll hang out there for a while because they're eating. If you want your success, you're not going to find it in the ocean, out of Barnegat.
Atlantic stuff. So early season, I remember fishing an FLW tournament in the Delaware Bay up by these crab markers. We were in 10 feet of water. We were catching nice sized fish, trolling small parachute jigs back then and some plugs. But I don't think we went deeper than 15 feet. But the key is when you're fishing shallow is that dump your stuff, have it back.
Figure out how to get it
Right.
back as far.
Because that's where the mud and the small creatures like the crabs and things, and shrimp coming out of the mud, the sun hits that, it warms up quicker. So a lot of your resident fish will be there. And then as fish are getting prepared to spawn, either up the Delaware or up the Hudson, or around up, going into the Long Island Sound and those tributaries, you always, those are the areas you want to fish in the early season. This year was pretty early. Like a lot of people were scrambling to get their boats in the water because, generally mid-April is when people start, messing around, and the end of March, people were now catching, fish that are transitioning, not local fish, but transition fish that are going, the different biomasses. There's 4 major ones, the Chesapeake, the Delaware, and then you got the Hudson River, and then you got the Long Island Sound, and those fish are staging up and getting ready to go up and spawn. And then you'll miss out on the large fish, and you'll catch the smaller fish that are residents or schooling fish. And then you'll get that hit again at the end of May, and, again, the fish will still be moving. But in the spring, traditionally is a bait fishing time of the year, but we've been doing well so far. We've probably had a dozen or so charters, and we've been
doing well,
yeah,
trolling Mojo.
trolling Mojos. And spoon combo
And
too.
then, and a lot of the guys now like it because, they're not netting bait, they're not cutting up 100 fish, they're not on the hook chunking. A lot of these captains like to be able to go around and, catch their fish and catch, X amount of fish to release for the people. Dirtying everything up. It's really clean fishing, but that's one convenience, but it's super effective. I mean, it truly is, especially when you start playing with these tandems and you have the ability to put different trailing baits at whatever your depth is by controlling that with your Mojo head weight. It's really wonderful, and utilizing high retrieve rods and reels, 2-speed. It's a big
Takes
game
it to the
changer.
next level.
Yeah.
What colors are you using? Weights, some different sizes?
I have a lot of success with the John Deere one.
Okay,
It's like the chartreuse.
Chartreuse.
Back,
okay,
and I kill them in the fall.
right.
In the spring, we just fish mostly
Are
back.
you marking? Are they all?
Most of the time, no, you're not marking anything.
Okay.
It's just random.
So I mean, in South Jersey, it's been tough in the spring because those fish are power
Right,
moving.
it's almost.
You get a bad 2-3 days of weather, and the fish that were off of Cape May are now up in the Raritan Bay, And again, when the fish are heading back down south, a lot of times we're fishing these southern tournaments, and we're fishing the most northern border, and that's where we're catching the big fish because they haven't reached south yet. And then you get a bad couple of days of weather, and either they go offshore or they head back down, to go off from Maryland and Virginia in the winter.
Which they did last year.
Right.
Last year was, caught fish, but I mean, we did pretty good because, that whole snag and drop and pods of bunker on top wasn't there. It left a lot of guys not knowing what to do and how to do it. And the weather was awful. That's a whole other aspect. Tournament fish, you can get away with the white coat that's say 25, 26 foot boat, but anything less than that, you're gonna cut it, especially when it's cranking out there or it's, built up too high, you're not gonna be able to push through it, so.
Is the dredging, can you talk a little bit about problems, the ongoing dredging? Because I mean, it's never gonna stop.
Yeah, they need to put groins in and stop spending millions and millions of dollars dredging. It's a waste. You're gonna put it on the beach, and the first nor'easter you have when you're done in the fall, it sucks it right out.
Right, so where we live in Brick, you have Manilokin and Bayhead and all those, the top of Island Beach, Island Beach. And they've been dredging the last 2 years. Now, a friend of mine who has a beachfront home is now looking straight at a mound of sand, 20 feet high. So it's no longer ocean view. Yeah.
Just when, Sandy came and, all the black fishing and everything, and it covered up all of those little hangs on the inshore, everything got sanded over. Some of it started coming back because, Mother Nature was pulling it off and exposing stuff again. That's what you need.
Right.
Nothing lives in a barren, just sand bottom. It needs, outcroppings. It needs, what do they call them? Reefs. It needs stuff along like that. But all they can do is dredging, and they have to really.
I mean, the surf fishermen
come up with a better plan.
have been taking a beating over the past few years. I mean, it's just a fact. They're talking about it, and they're getting little windows of fish coming in shortly. Yeah, I mean, the days of having those, different sandbars and stuff setting up holding fish are, they're just clearing that all out and putting it up on the beach is what they're doing. So that's more important for us to get even more structure, more artificial.
But yeah, it's a negative effect.
Right.
Big time.
Yeah.
Not to mention sometimes it's a complete navigation hazard because they don't even light their warning buoys up, and you don't have the proper radar and know that they're there and mark them. I mean, you can have a problem when you're trafficking in the dark in a smaller boat, or you're just it's awful.
Yeah. Try to say it. So, any other? Yes, sir.
What's gonna happen when there's gonna be a lot of bluefish this year?
Well,
Change Mojo to fishing oil?
yeah,
We'll sell a lot.
we'll sell a lot of sheds. Yeah, last year, we didn't get the bluefish that we, traditionally. I mean, I worked on a party boat for 20 years on and off, and we used to have bluefishing twice a day. no problem. We haven't seen that. We just started, I caught my first bluefish Tuesday night in the Manasquan River. Some big bluefish came in, and I know they've been hitting a lot of these areas. Barnegat Inlet has seen some fish come in, and I know Atlantic City, a couple of people, but where they're, usually they're resident, they stay all summer, but that's also too, I think why the striped bass are getting hammered is because all those Northeast traditional bluefish boats are all converting to striper boats. So a boat like the Brooklyn or some other boats are having 8 passengers killing 2 fish each and bonus tags. You're taking a lot of fish every day, and I think that's taking a toll on these fish. Virginia's seeing it right now.
Yeah, Virginia's
10 years ago, we were fishing down there, the 60s were not uncommon. And I said to the guy, he's like, oh, you don't get these up by you. And I said, well, you're not gonna have them here much longer because they're killing them all. And now they're scrambling to make up some referendums to stop killing those big fish,
And then the other thing, we just touch on it, it's not directly, but, you have some of these, commercial bunker boats that are grandfathered into Raritan Bay. These boats, about a half mile from shore in most cases, they don't belong there. They can go in there and sweep out all the bunker.
Done.
And that's the food. You're taking the food out of the physical nursery. I'm not against it, but you can't be where these fish need to live and be able to grow without being in the open ocean and, have a higher mortality out there because they don't survive.
Yeah, there wasn't a day.
All of these things between what Virginia's done and experiencing and the laws, and then, these commercial boats going in there literally with spider planes every day. You go up there and see it right now, sweeping out these areas right in your backyard. If you actually know what you're looking at, it's tremendous what they can do. No bait, no fish. That's simple.
Right. It's the most important part of this diversity is the bunker for a lot of fishing shore, and including humpback whales. Last year, we could take charters out every day and guarantee them to see whales, and big whales, like, breaching right next to us. So we didn't have that 5-10 years ago when they were coming in and clearing out the bunker. So the first step is to save that fishery.
And then you also need a unified, federal law, which each state will adopt this, a good compromise. Massachusetts, Virginia, probably, if anyone's listening, probably all mad, about the commercial side of it, but.
Yeah, they need to make it a game fish.
We gotta protect it if you like to catch it. If not, then again, it'll go like it did late 80s, early 90s, where you heard one guy catching a striper.
Yeah. And then we fish in an area that we share New York. So like right now, fluke fishing's open in New York, but in New Jersey, you can't fluke fish till the end of the month. So all the New York guys are celebrating their opening day, and they're coming into Jersey to catch all these big fluke. You had a couple already, and as bycatch. It's gonna be more beautiful.
He's like, I can't keep them.
No, you can't keep that 4-pounder. Yeah, so. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free. I appreciate Tackle Direct and Tony Maja Products for hosting us today.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
And we'll stay here for a little bit. We'll stay on, anybody online, you have our email addresses, and go from there.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.